Hey everybody, it's been a little while since I've posted anything, so I wanted to kind of get back into the groove here. There have been a lot of things that have gone on in the last few months as far as my own writing is concerned, and my reading as well. So I did want to talk a little bit about what's happened with my own personal writing and why I had a little bit of a hiatus just in terms of creative output and discussion points. A lot of it was focused much more on my actual writing, my fiction in particular. And a lot of it was just pure paralysis of waiting for a particular what I hoped was gonna be an acceptance for one of my novels. And it's fascinating how your brain can become locked in that waiting, in that anticipation for what you hope will be good news. And ultimately, technically speaking, it was bad news in the sense that this novel was ultimately passed on. It had gone through rounds of consideration and gotten to a final round of consideration, and I was just thrilled that would be happening, that this novel would come to fruition and be published and all that. But I thought I'd be more devastated than I ended up being, and it was really a good lesson in handling rejection. If you write, if you exist, you will encounter rejection inevitably. If you write, there's a particular type of rejection. If you're putting yourself out there in any sense, you're going to ultimately face rejection. Most people, I should say, and that's a part of it. And you recognize that, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily make it any easier. There's not that thick skin that people often talk about developing. It's kind of ebbs and flows, right? Sometimes you get a rejection, you're like, oh well, so be it, and then you might get another rejection months or years later, and for whatever reason it particularly bothers you. It makes you feel vulnerable and silly and all those different emotions that come along with it. And even as you recognize that that's not productive, it's silly to feel silly. That's just what happens. That's the name of the game. So much of it is a numbers game. But through this particular rejection process and evaluation of the work, it was very beneficial for me to see how not getting what you're hoping for enables you to shift that perspective and to shift your creative energy. For instance, let's say this had taken place, what I really thought I always wanted, this particular novel being published. I would have had to have gone through an incredible amount of edits, bending and shaping this thing. And I do love this novel, but also there are other things that I want to work on. There are newer things that I'm toying with and I'm playing with, and there's a fresh creative energy with the things that I'm working on now. And if this rejection had not happened, I would be so immersed in this editing process and so focused on something that I really feel like might need to sit for a while, and I might need to shift directions and really delve into the things that I'm working on at the moment. And it really was enabled me to have this very wonderful creative energy once I got over that initial disappointment. And I think that's something to remember in terms of these rejections. Like, okay, hey, that's great. You got rejected. That's not great, but you have something now to change and focus your energy toward, and use that for a new goal. It could just be going back to the work and looking and seeing if you can edit it further. That's fine. But sometimes it's just an opportunity to completely step outside of that mode of creativity, that particular mode you're working in, and try something different. So that was actually ended up being very fruitful, this rejection that I received. And really what ended up happening is something that I was working on anyway. It just grew further and further, and developed into something that I'm really proud of, and that now, of course, I'm attempting to find representation for. So that's there's always a positive that comes from that. It can be debilitating psychologically, and it's good to know that others share that. If you talk to any other writer, any other creative person, doesn't have to be writing, that they've encountered that, and you're not alone in that. And you often only hear about people's successes, and you don't hear about how silly they feel when they're writing, or you don't see the rough drafts, right? And even when you see examples of the rough drafts, they've chosen the drafts that still sound really good. You really need to just revel in trying things out and making those mistakes. So that's kind of where I've been, and it does all come down to the authenticity of your work. And I'm always struggling to find that, not to be cliche, but to find that truth within myself. And you can feel it when you're writing, and you can feel this is false. You're doing this because this is the convention. This is what you feel you should be doing. And I get in that trap a lot. And the best I've ever felt, even with things that are rejected, and time and again have been rejected, I feel so good to have done something the way I wanted to do it. Whereas I've had other pieces that have been published, and I look back and I think this is a conventional mindset. Yeah, it was okay, but I was really just doing the notes that I thought I should be playing, and not trying to do my own, play my own notes, find my own music. I was just playing the conventions of what I thought, and what I did end up getting me published. And that's kind of an unfortunate situation with where we stand in the state of books and state of publishing, because, and this is coming from an article I recently read, it's really tough now to have all eyes on your work, or have somebody delve deeply into your work, when there are fewer and fewer editors, fewer and fewer journals that have the ability to delve deeply into your piece. Whereas somebody had mentioned, do you think Proust or Joyce, these different wonderful, some of my favorite writers, do you think now if they were to send something off, somebody's going to take that and delve into the beauty of it in the way that they really need to in order to completely appreciate this type of writing? It's become way more, you're just trying to hook people because that's what you just have somebody who's just reviewing hundreds and hundreds a day, or a week at least, of these writings that come their way, and they don't have an opportunity to say, oh, hold on, let me focus on what this person's about. Let me try to engage with what they might be trying to say here. Let me give them the benefit of the doubt that this is a deeply personal, deeply beautiful work if I look at it in the right way. They can't really do that to the degree where editors, publishers used to perhaps be able to in the past. So that's kind of one aspect of it as well, is who cares ultimately that you are getting 100, 1,000 rejections if what you're producing and creating is your authentic self. And that's a point that brings me to a novel that I've been working on, that I've been reading, that I really, really enjoyed. Up until these last couple hundred pages, I'm really struggling to get through, and that's William Gaddis's The Recognitions. My cover has already torn off here in the last little bit. This is, of quite a undertaking, 950 pages, and it is about, in so many ways, authenticity and forgeries. It's about all different kinds of forgeries. Primarily, if you were to read the back of the book, it would say art forgeries. It's so hard to describe within a paragraph or a summary, but it really is about all the different types of forgeries that exist, even in human interactions, the different falsities that we portray, trying to, again, pretend to be things that we are not, whether it be an art forger, or whether it be the way we communicate with people and the way we use certain words and jargon, just the way that we are constantly veiling ourselves, our true selves, in a certain type of forgery and a certain type of inauthenticity. And it's it's a heavy, at times wonderful novel, but man, how many cocktail parties can you have? It really, sometimes it felt like it was difficult for the sake of being a difficult novel. And sometimes it just blew me away with the insight and beauty of the novel, particularly with the idea of originality. And it made me rethink how I view my own creativity. Right? We're always trying to, and we always hear, let's be original, make sure you're original. And originality can be such trash, right? You were just trying to find something that no one's ever done before, but that does not make it good, right? It can, but it doesn't always mean that it's a good product, a good creation. And it really eased my anxiety for attempting to write in the mode of others and producing my own original piece using these other modes of fiction and narrative that others before me have used to such success. And I know that's kind of how literary history and lineage, anxiety of influence and all that works, but we always tend to think we've got to do something wildly innovative and that's going to automatically be good. And there are obviously plenty of postmodern attempts at writing that show that that's not the case, while there are beautiful, numerous examples of new writers writing in older modes of narrative forms that are producing gorgeous work. And that really enabled me to relax in my own creative production, that I'm searching for whatever mode I can use to create the best work that I can create, not just for it to be something no one's ever seen before, because that can get tired and old pretty quickly once the novelty of that, I won't say gimmick, but once that novelty of that new original mode that you've created kind of burns out, because the authenticity is not really there. You're just looking for something that is fresh and new. And I think at the end of the day, that's why you have novels and fiction that does rise over the years, over the decades, centuries, sometimes, and it becomes a work that is cherished. And it's because of that, in my opinion, often it's because of the authenticity of that bleeds through, that surpasses any kind of conventions of society. It surpasses any kind of conventions or gimmicks of novelty. It just becomes a great work in its own right. So that's something that the recognitions really made me recognize, and I have appreciated so much of it, but it's way too long. And also, you might just say, hey, I didn't get a lot of it. It just went over my head. That's fine. I ran out of that intellectual energy to really battle with it, at the end. So I'm trying to make it through this last 100 pages, and it's I'm going to be glad that I have read it, but I cannot see returning to it. And I'm glad I took what I took from it and it was very productive in that sense. So that's William Gaddis's The Recognitions. So I would, and Thomas McCarthy writes a foreword to the new edition, not this edition, but the new edition. And I would like to read that once I'm done with the novel, because I love Tom McCarthy and his insight. His essays are brilliant. But that's my reading, The Recognitions. And the other piece that I've read recently, very much on the other end of the spectrum, is a short, beautiful collection of essays by Nina Maclaughlin called Winter Solstice. And this is just absolutely beautiful. There are four essays in here, maybe 5, but they're essays on the winter solstice, but on different themes of the winter time and of memory and of youth, and why the winter time is such a different experience to us, and how it can capture certain memories in ways that other times don't, and this contradiction within these cold days, trying to push the light through in the dark. Contradiction, not the best word to use there, but this kind of juxtaposition, maybe. Anyway, you really just feel the winter vibe when you're reading this collection of essays. Some of it is so poignant and makes you hold on and draw back to your memories of sledding, of hanging ornaments on the tree, and all the different reasons why: smoke in the air in the winter, candlelight in a window, the stars being so clear, all these different things that the winter solstice brings, and the almost metaphysical quality of your experience at certain times, and just gorgeous interweaving of these different ideas within this collection. So I would highly recommend Nina Maclaughlin's Winter Solstice essays, and that's kind of been my two main reading items for the last few months. I did pick up Kafka's Letters to Melina. I've never been somebody I'm enormous Kafka fan and obsessed Kafka reader, but I've always found it difficult reading personal letters by writers. Not that they're not beautiful and worthy. Something about the intimacy of that has always made me uncomfortable. And I know that sounds so odd because I read so many uncomfortable things, but I decided I really needed to read these Letters to Melina to get even a more well-rounded idea of Kafka's writing, and the ways he expresses himself in different modes. And I do enjoy picking up his diaries. You're not gonna get more intimate than that. Picking up his diaries, and this is really the Letters to Melina is the only thing I have really never read much of at all, other than different quotes that are in biographies of Kafka, which I am also making a trip through another read of Representative Man, another biography of Kafka. But I have been looking at that a little bit. It's always fascinating to read Kafka in any capacity. But certainly the Letters to Melina, I've heard someone say they believe that's the most beautiful collection of love letters in history. So we'll see. Don't have a whole lot coming up as far as my reading goes, but I'll keep you guys informed, and please let me know what you guys are reading, and if you have anything you want to discuss or want me to discuss on the channel, let me know. Hope everybody's doing well. Have a great day.